Mama. Welcome to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Michelle Gibbs, and this podcast exists to help scholarly mamas like you to achieve your life and academic goals without sacrificing what matters most. Here, we're changing the overwhelm, juggle, struggle narrative around what it means to be a mama on an academic journey to one of empowerment, fulfillment, and purposeful success. So how do we successfully navigate these journeys? Well, first, we need the space to embrace this unique blend. Let's begin by saying yes to creating a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside, because that's when we truly become purposefully whole. So get ready for the most non-traditional, unconventional, and revolutionary approach to PhD motherhood, because one thing I have learned over my many years of experience on this journey is that if you want something different, you have to do something different. But you must be brave enough to think differently first. So, Mama, are you in? Fabulous. Let's begin. These are our journeys of becoming. Hey, Mama, welcome back to the podcast. I've got a super exciting episode for you today with a very special guest who I have wanted to be on this show for quite some time. And I am so happy that she is here to join us today. I am going to be speaking to Dr. Yvette Martinez-Vu. You may know her as Grad School Femtoring on Instagram and other online platforms, and it's my pleasure to have her on this show. She's got so much to share from her experience, her skills and knowledge, and we're going to be talking about all things PhD motherhood. So get comfortable and enjoy being a fly on the wall in our conversation about all things PhD motherhood. Enjoy the episode, Mama. Today we have Dr. Yvette Martinez-Vu, who is a PhD. She's got a PhD. She did her PhD back in 2016. And she's also a mum of two. And we'll talk a lot more about that as we go on in the show today. But now she works as a coach, a mentor, a speaker, and serves mainly individuals from the BIPOC community. And I'm so thrilled to have you here, Yvette. We've been wanting to count down to this for quite some time. So to have you here is such an honor for me. Do you want to share something fun about yourself before we get into the episode?
Something fun. I mean, I do a lot of things that I think are fun, but then maybe they're just nerdy. I am a fellow podcaster, so I love listening to podcasts. I'm a big audiobook nerd. I love watching trash TV, reality TV. Yeah, I'm a mom of two. I'm also a homeschooling mama, and that's something that sometimes catches people by surprise because while I am primarily a grad school and productivity coach, consultant, that's what I do to make a living, I also spend a lot of time at home with my children.
Yeah, I don't know how you actually do that. So I'd love to hear more about that as we talk today. Just tell us a little bit about your background and what led you to where you are today.
Yes, so when I usually share a little bit more about my backstory, I like to give a little bit of context. I'm someone who is from the U.S., born and raised in the West Coast in Southern California. My parents are Mexican immigrants, and I'm actually one of 6 children. I'm the eldest daughter in my family. I also grew up in a single parent household because my dad passed away suddenly of a brain aneurysm when I was 12. And the 2 little ones were a year and a half and 6 months. So overnight, my mom became a single mom to 6 kids. And I suddenly had a lot of caregiving responsibilities as a little girl. I was parentified in many ways. Growing up, grew up low income, grew up in a predominantly Mexican immigrant community in Southern California, grew up going into attending the public school setting. And I was the first in my family to go to college. College was a big dream. It was something that I had this idea that I wanted to do because I was told it was the key to success. But I had never stepped foot on a college campus. So one of the trends in my life is that I've leaned a lot on the support of my peers. So there were a group of us who all kind of helped each other out with figuring out the college application process. I somehow, to my surprise, got into UCLA, which was close to home at the time. So I ended up going to UCLA for college, and I stayed there for graduate school. So I was an English literature major, a theater minor. I had been very involved in theater practice, acting, and stage managing. I didn't think I could build a career out of it. And so the next best thing for me was getting introduced to academia, the professoriate. And at the time, I thought I was going to become a theater professor. So that's what led me to conducting undergraduate research in theater, pursuing a PhD in theater and performance studies. I landed in grad school again, first in my family, first among even a lot of my peers to go to graduate school, went straight into a PhD program out of undergrad. And it was in graduate school that I learned about my love of mentorship. It was in graduate school that I became very sick and started developing chronic illnesses. It was also in graduate school that I became a mom for the first time. And there were just all these things were formative experiences for me that shape who I am and what I do now. So that's why a lot of what I do is support folks who are navigating either the graduate school admissions process, completing their dissertation or thesis, and then pursuing their career options. So sometimes it's continuing on an academic track, sometimes it's pivoting into other industries. So I support folks across the board, across that journey through my services. But yes, I'm happy to share more details about my experiences because I know I shared it all in a very, very quick way.
Yeah, I'd love to kind of dissect those a little bit. You mentioned being first gen, having chronic conditions, and
Yes.
also being Chicana. And I
Yes.
wanted to kind of unpack a little bit what unique challenges you felt that you faced during your PhD. Obviously, you mentioned quite a few of them, but could you talk me through them maybe in a little bit more detail? What were those challenges and how did you overcome them?
Yeah, I'm happy to go through them one by one. So first off, first gen, when I refer to first gen, I'm referring to being the first in the family to go to college. So neither of my parents have more than a middle school and high school education. I'm also first generation living, like born and living in the US. So my parents were born in Mexico. I the major hurdle that came up for me that comes up a lot for folks who identify as first gen is that because you are the first, you are a trailblazer. And in being a trailblazer, you're constantly navigating new spaces. So for me, what was a big challenge in college and in graduate school was learning about and navigating the hidden curriculum. I didn't know what I didn't know. And every step of the way, I felt like I didn't know enough. I was always writing down acronyms, I was always taking notes. I was always feeling like I was asking silly questions. It felt like everybody else knew what was going on and I did not. And that continued to be the case. And it continues to be the case even now as I navigate a different career. And as I advance in my career, there are so many things that you just don't know. And if you don't have access to the knowledge, to community, to resources, it's a lot harder to navigate these stepping stones, especially when you don't know what's coming up next. So the hidden curriculum was one major challenge that inspired me to do the work that I do of demystifying it, especially through my podcast and other forms of resources I offer. Then there's also the disability piece of it. If you had told me I was disabled in grad school, I wouldn't have believed it. I thought disability was a bad word. I had this picture in my mind of what disabled people look like, and I didn't think of myself as disabled enough to use that term. So for me, it's been a learning experience in over time, as I've learned more about my illnesses and as I've unfortunately developed more chronic illnesses, I've learned that I was dealing with a lot of internalized ableism in grad school. I was struggling with a lot of health issues, primarily around like stomach issues, migraines, those areas. And I just thought I had to just keep pushing through. And I tried my best to keep up with everybody else around me, all the non-disabled folks around me. And that only led to me getting sicker. And it also led to me struggling with my mental health. I really struggled with depression and anxiety to the point of developing postpartum depression. And that was a really, really scary time in my life. And I wish that I didn't have to reach really low points or breaking points to get help. But I did get help, and I did get help through therapy, through professional services. I had the privilege as a student to have access to these supports, and I did eventually get that support, but it took a while. It took a while for me. And I definitely was not aware of my own internalized ableism at the time. And so that was a big challenge, is just feeling like I had to push through and push through no matter what, and not giving myself time and space to honor my body's needs. And then as a Chicana, um, as a woman of color, and being in a predominantly white department, that was another challenge of dealing with the micro and macro aggressions of the folks around me in the department. And yeah, just being around people who were not culturally aware and not seeing myself represented in these spaces. That was a challenge because it made me internalize that otherness. It made me feel like there's something wrong with me rather than thinking actually there's something wrong with the department and the lack of representation in the department and the lack of support that comes with that. So those were some of the prominent challenges that came up for me.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to, I can definitely relate to the first generation piece and the challenges that come with that. And being one of the older people in the family, older siblings, for example, that comes with its own expectations and pressures. And also the being a woman of color in a predominantly white or global minority group, you are, you feel like you said, you feel that otherness and wonder, is there a place for you here? Do you even belong here? The imposter syndrome is at a whole new level, I think, when you're dealing with those things as well. I mean, every PhD student, I'm sure, experiences imposter syndrome, but it's kind of magnified when you've got other challenges as well. And then being a mom, I think it's a beautiful journey, but it's also really difficult when you're also navigating a PhD journey. So I know that must have been really hard for you. And I know, based on what you said, the disability piece has been really difficult. And I think, like you said, not even knowing or being aware of that, even when you were dealing with those physical challenges, probably made it worse. So I am just in awe of you, of how you've been able to do everything that you've been able to do, and now homeschooling as well. Oh my goodness. So can you tell me a little bit more about the Chicana Mother, and that's spelled M brackets OTHER, that collective, and how it supports and amplifies the voices of mothers of color in academia?
Yeah, so just to tie it back to what I was just saying about my backstory and about my challenges. So I faced these challenges of like lack of representation, lack of support. And it wasn't until I became a mom that I realized, well, one, that I started to learn to advocate for myself, because I had to learn to advocate for my child. So that in turn meant me advocating for myself. But I realized there are so many underrepresented populations on college campuses and institutions of higher ed. I became exposed to the non-trad or non-traditional population. I had been a traditional student. I was someone who went straight into college. I didn't go to the community college. And shout out to anyone who goes to the community colleges, because I know that is a separate challenge in and of itself, and it takes a lot to overcome that challenge. And I love working with folks who have that experience. So I was a traditional student up until that point. Then I realized, oh, there's so many folks that need extra support. And I became more aware and more inspired, you could even say galvanized to start to take action. And one of the ways that I took action was by getting involved and creating new collectives. So I founded two collectives at the time. One of them was called the Mothers of Color in Academia, the UCLA, so UCLA Mother Collective. And then the second one was the Chicana Mother Work Collective, and we were all mother scholars across different institutions on the West Coast. And so, with both collectives, the purpose behind them was to advocate and shed light on the experiences of mothers of color in academia. But what made Chicana Mother Work stand out is that, one, we were not affiliated with one single institution. Two, we conducted research and presented all over at different academic conferences across the nation. And three, the work that we ended up doing together led to us co-editing a best-selling anthology. And in that anthology, we provided or we curated pieces that were research articles, hybrid of research and testimonial type of
Mm-hmm.
articles, and then just testimonies of different women of color and how they have navigated motherhood in academia.
Mm-hmm.
And so that work has been really pivotal and has informed the work that I continue to do on my own through my business, because the the collective is not just a collective, it also offers a framework, and the framework that comes with this idea of mother work with the brackets on the word other
Yeah.
is that it's a new interpretation of mother work, of care work, of teaching, mothering. It's thinking about the work that we do as multi-layered and as holistic. It's we don't compartmentalize. A lot of the work that we do kind of transcends boundaries.
Yeah.
And I very much see that showing up in the work that I do. And it is a work of care. It is labor. It is highly gendered work too. There is mentorship, femtorship involved. So there are some overlaps even today, even though our collective isn't as active as it was before. They continue to be part of my support system. These individuals, we're still very close. And that framework continues to inform the work that I do.
That is so powerful, and well done for bringing these mamas together in forming this collective. I think it's amazing. And you're right. I think the idea of, transcending boundaries is really important to appreciate, because a lot of times the expectation is that we can just compartmentalize everything that we do without realizing that actually we are whole individuals and everything overlaps.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay for everything to overlap. In fact, it's probably a good thing for everything to overlap to some degree, because it helps us to show up as the best version of that particular aspect of ourselves when we do, because it's informed by all the other things that we're doing. So I think that's amazing. And I'm so happy that you still benefit from that work, still benefit from those connections. And it really showcases the power of, like-minded people coming together and really sharing that experience and sharing their experiences and their journeys, because really, otherwise, what's the alternative to navigate this journey in isolation and alone? And it's a really difficult thing to do. So I could see why you did that. And I think, it's really beautiful to see that you still benefit from those connections and it's still a tight-knit group and still support each other. So that's really good. So now that you are finished your PhD and you've moved into your business, and in terms of coaching and mentoring and really serving this BIPOC community, what has actually inspired you to transition from that traditional academic path to this more service-oriented, supportive role after completing your PhD?
Well, I have undergone two professional pivots. The first professional pivot, both of them were related to doing the service work and pursuing values alignment.
Yeah.
When I graduated with my PhD, it was 2016. And at the time, I had decided that I did not want to be applying for tenure track jobs. And instead, I was going to pivot or transition to applying to service-oriented, staff-based positions at colleges and universities. I knew this was a big decision at the time. It was a really difficult decision because I didn't receive a lot of support. In fact, I had individuals who were disappointed and who refused to support me in the form of writing me letters of rec for these types of jobs. So I lost ties to some connections. I lost ties to some mentors as a result of this decision. But I felt that I would rather disappoint others than disappoint myself. And I knew at the time, and I've said this countless times, that the priorities of the types of jobs I was looking at for tenure track jobs that I was being encouraged to apply to, the research one positions, the values were you got to prioritize research first, then teaching, then service. And that was inverted from what I actually believed in. For me, I love service work. I mentored every single year that I was a graduate student. I knew that I thrived in that setting, that I was so nourished in that setting, that I was my best self in that setting. So I knew service has to be first, then teaching, and then maybe research. And that continues to be the case even now. But even though I did end up making that transition and I landed a few jobs in higher education, I made a second pivot in 2021. And this was thanks in part to the pandemic starting. I think a lot of us had this big awakening. I was definitely part of the movement of people that's called the Great Resignation. So I left my job in pursuit of alignment once again. And this was because I was overwhelmed. I was doing too much. I had my second child. The working from home over 40 hours a week, dealing with my ongoing health issues, having one child doing online distance learning, and my eldest is on the autism spectrum, so had additional learning challenges and accommodations that he needed, learning supports, and then having a newborn or infant, because by the time I left, she was no longer a newborn. So having an infant that I was breastfeeding, it was a lot. I was overwhelmed. It was too much. And I realized I wanted to pursue a different pace of life. So I wanted to slow down. I wanted more ease. I wanted more authenticity. I felt like I often had to hide parts of myself or censor myself in the pursuit of promoting the goals and the mission of the work that I was doing at the time. And that didn't feel right for me anymore. I've always been a proponent of higher education, but I knew that there were instances where it just didn't make sense for a student to pursue higher education because of their life and career interests. So that to me meant making another pivot. So that's when I decided to pursue entrepreneurship for more alignment. So that's really what inspired these two pivots, is wanting to pursue a change, noticing that I was in need of something different, noticing a values misalignment and trying to pursue something better.
Yeah, I love that. And I love, I just love to hear stories of purposeful pivots and not just changing because we just, I call them kind of choice experiences where you have made that conscious decision that actually something isn't for you and made the intentional move to something that aligns much more closely with your values and what, like you said, what nourishes you, what brings you joy. And I think, a lot of people feel stuck because they either can't do that or are afraid of doing that. And to see that actually there's joy on the other end of this. Not that everything is going to be perfect, because that doesn't exist. But if you can do something that just lifts your spirit every day and just gives you life, right? In terms of just bringing you that joy and satisfaction, I think is just amazing. I'm so happy that you've been able to make that choice for yourself and you had the opportunity to and actually just went for it. So in your experience, what are some of the biggest hurdles that first generation BIPOC students face in navigating graduate school. I know these are the people that you work with every day and serve every day. So what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've experienced in your conversations with them?
Yes. So some of the hurdles are some of the ones that I listed that I faced myself.
Yeah.
So definitely the challenge of navigating the hidden curriculum continues to be an ongoing thing, will continue to be a thing for as long as we continue to have first gen students. Um, the lack of community side of things too is, something that I deeply felt, and that's why I decided to create my own collectives. So lack of community, isolation, loneliness, which often feeds into struggling with their mental health, sometimes struggling with their physical health. One thing that I'm noticing more and more is that a lot of the folks that come to me are coming to me as a result of dealing with neglectful advisors. I don't think we talk about this enough. And there are many reasons for why they might be dealing with a neglectful advisor. On the one hand, there are so few of us that are BIPOC that go up the ranks. And so because there are so few, a lot of times their service demands are higher, the number of students they take on are higher, their capacity just becomes that much more limited.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that, I don't want to like make it seem like it's necessarily toxic advisors that's the reason for this neglect in higher ed. It's a lot of different circumstances, and there are definitely some toxic advisors. There are definitely some spiteful people that shouldn't be professors and shouldn't be mentors or advisors. But I would just say that neglect is one thing that comes up, of lack of support and neglect, lack of guidance, lack of structure. Also, what I've noticed is them facing the reality of the academic job market. So dealing with the grim reality of a grim job market that is not looking promising year by year. There's so few tenure track jobs, and so many people pursue, especially the doctoral degrees, in pursuit of a career in the professoriate, and they become so discouraged and disillusioned when they find out there are so few positions, and more of those positions are getting taken away. More of those tenure lines are no longer existing. And it just makes it that much more challenging. There's so many brilliant, highly skilled individuals who have PhDs, and they did everything perfectly. And it's just the luck of the draw. There's no jobs for them. They apply to a few jobs, they get nothing. And then they're on this cycle for years to come, hoping that they will land something. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. And so that's one thing that comes up. And that is also tied to the next thing that comes up a lot is struggling to translate their skill set into other industries. And then also not knowing what their options are beyond higher ed. And these are all areas that I support people with, all these areas, because one, like, I get it, I've been there. And two, this is what's coming up. This is what I notice. This is what they're asking for. And I'm equipped to support them because I've made those transitions. I've navigated those hurdles as well.
Yeah, I think that is so powerful. And one of the things that came to my mind as you were talking about the not getting the correct and appropriate level of support from a supervisor, from an advisor. One of the things that I really admired about one of my PhD supervisors, actually all of my PhD supervisors, because I really I'm so grateful for the supervisors that I did have. But I noticed that one of the things that they really prioritized was becoming a really good supervisor. And that sounds really obvious, but not everybody is in it for the, really supporting that student, really guiding them, supporting them, addressing and supporting them through whatever challenges they've got coming up or whatever their needs might be. And I always felt so incredibly supported. And I noticed, there were times where my supervisor would attend classes on supervising and to just get better at that. And I was a beneficiary of all of that. So I can tell you that it really does make a difference. And if there's if there are any, like, PhD supervisors listening to this, really understand the power that you have to make or break someone's PhD experience. And it's, it's so appreciated when we can be the beneficiaries of you developing your own professional growth in a way that supports the student. And, I can only sing praises for being the beneficiary of that. And I recognize the role that played in my own journey. I'm so grateful. And also, sorry, there was something else that you said I wanted to comment on as well, but it's kind of lost. I've lost it.
Was it related to the job market or
Oh,
skills
yeah.
translation?
Yeah, it actually was that. I was speaking to somebody recently and they were talking about careers by design and career design. And I actually really love that concept because I think a lot of times we get on, especially when you're a high achiever, right? And you're first gen, this is, you're navigating all these unknown spaces and really trying to make all the right decisions because you don't want to misstep, right? And realizing that we have more power than we think we have and more options than we think we have. And one of the reasons why some of us end up feeling really stuck is because we don't actually know that we have these options, or we're scared to explore them, for fear of like making a huge mistake. And actually making a huge mistake is not a bad thing because you can always come back from that. But also speaking to people like yourself, really getting to know what your options are, really considering those based on your own desires, circumstances, ambitions, and being brave enough to make those non-traditional career moves, I think is so important. And this idea of career design appeals to me because it gives me that agency, gives me that power to say, look, this is what I want my career to look like. And this is what I want my journey to look like. And it's okay if it looks a bit different from the traditional trajectory, but it's important that I find satisfaction in my choices. So I'm sure a lot of people will relate to that. A lot of PhDs will relate to that because we kind of think this is the one trajectory that we can follow, but actually having navigated that myself as well and realizing that I get to create and design the career that I want for myself, I have really appreciated the opportunity to do that. So yeah, really, really wanted to just bring out those 2 points. So can you now share with us some of the insights that you have gained along the way on juggling the demands of motherhood and academic pursuits? Talk me through what that was like for you.
Well, if I could go back in time, I would have spent more time with my first child. I'll just say this. I'll say that because I did struggle to balance. I did struggle to balance my family and my academics, and I didn't have as clear. I did have an understanding of my values, but they weren't as clear or as firm. I wasn't as intentional about maintaining them as I am now. So I don't want to make it seem like, oh my gosh, I balance grad school perfectly with my family. No. And who does, right? But I there's a lot of improvement there. But over time, especially when I had my second child, I was still in higher ed, not a student anymore, but still within the institution. And what I noticed was coming up for me is that I needed to make sure I was clear with my values and including my family within them, make sure I was clear with my priorities, and make sure that I could discern what mattered most in any given moment. So thinking about like, what season am I in right now? What season in my life am I in? So for example, I have a toddler right now. And so for me, I know that the first 5 years are so important and that I'm never going to get that time back. So I am prioritizing spending more time with my children than I will maybe when they're older and perhaps they are less interested in spending as much time with me. And then I can do other things with that time. So right now I know, okay, my business might not be booming. And that's because of the decisions that I'm making of sacred time with my kids. I also have to schedule in sacred time with myself because I have to take care of myself. If I don't take care of myself, nothing's good. I mean, it all falls apart.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And then, of course, I am partnered. I have a husband, and I am committed to our relationship. So I have to, at the very least, once or twice a month, like sacred time with my husband, whether that's a date or just like one-on-one time, making sure that we build time for that. And now more than ever, I wasn't as good at this in grad school, but definitely I'm more intentional now. I do think it's important to build community and to maintain and sustain relationships. I don't think it's a surprise that you invited me on the podcast because we have nurtured this relationship over time. How long have we known each other?
Oh my goodness, quite a while now.
Is it, and I'm like, is it 1 year, 2 years?
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years. Like you've known me since I was in Portugal. Now I'm back in the US.
Oh my goodness, it's been a while, but we've been very intentional about it.
Yeah, and that is a result of both of us being intentional about fostering this relationship and having this like reciprocal exchange. And
yeah,
I don't take that for granted. I'm so grateful to you, and I'm looking forward to maintaining this relationship that we have. I think it's what a beautiful relationship. We're like on the other sides of the pond.
I know. Well, we used to be on the same side of the pond.
We were. My bad. It's my fault.
You left.
I did.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I really do think that when you are intentional about fostering those connections, even if you are juggling all these, grad school and parenting and marriage or relationships, it's really important to first nurture yourself. And sometimes that means investing in those friendships, investing in those connections, investing in friendships that fill you up, and mutually you fill that person up too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so grateful that we've been able to connect. We've been able to really foster something here that is truly special. And it's, meeting people online is really strange. Like, it's a really strange concept. But when I talk to my husband about you, I'm like, you're on a first name basis with him.
Aww.
And he's like, oh, you're meeting Yvette tonight. I'm like, yeah. And so I think it's so special to kind of do that. And when you realize that your values align so closely with other people, I think that's when look, we can, and then, not everything is going to align. That's not reality. But, just having those communities and connections to help foster this sense of self and being able to then pour into the other cups that we are all juggling is so important. I can't believe it's been that long, actually. Goodness, it has been a while. Okay, so thinking about the fact that you have navigated this juggling act, you have done the academic pursuits and motherhood simultaneously and had your marriage growing all along, all the while. How have those experiences informed your approach to what you do now, which is the coaching and the mentoring of first-generation BIPOC students?
Well, okay. There's one thought that came to mind when we were talking about our relationship, because one of the things that I think stands out about me and the work that I do is that I am Latina, I am Chicana, and I support and amplify first and BIPOC voices. I could have decided to support and amplify other Latinas or other Chicanas, and I believe in that work too. But for me, I have found that some of my most genuine, reciprocal, nourishing connections have been with folks maybe who don't have exact same identity markers as me, but definitely have this shared values, shared vision, this shared like hope for the future of the world.
Yeah.
And so those are the type of people that I tend to attract too.
Yeah.
So with my services and, with like, how do my experiences as a mama inform this? I feel like it really ties back to the concept of femtorship,
Mhm.
the concept of care work, the concept of like love for one another. So femtorship is a word that I use a lot. And for me, when I use that word, it's a nod to thinking about mentorship from an intersectional feminist framework.
Mhm.
Mentorship also through a holistic approach. Femtorship is also a nod to how it's service work, and a lot of times it's highly gendered, undervalued, underacknowledged work. And guess what is also highly gendered, undervalued, underacknowledged? Care work, motherhood, parenting. And the folks that come to me, they're seeking not just teach me how to do this, help coach me through X, Y, and Z. They want that nurturing. They want that relationship building. They want that care. They want someone who's intentional, who's going to be who they trust, who's going to be careful with them and their time. So I think it's all interconnected for me. It's hard for me to like you know, s- pull them out as separate things because femtorship is connected to motherhood, which is connected to my values, which is connected to the people I'm attracted to, which is connected to the people that I attract. And guess what? My clients, a lot of them are also mamas. A lot of them are non-traditional. They're mamas. They're folks who went back to school. And then some of them intersect with me across other identity markers. They might have their own chronic illnesses, or they might be neurodivergent too, or they might they you name it, there's somewhere like they intersect in some way, whether it's identities or values,
Yeah.
and definitely they want this very intentional kind of support.
Yeah, no, I think that's so important. And it just goes back to even the original concept we talked about, which is showing up as your whole self, showing up as your whole self in everything that you're doing, because there's so much overlap, and you don't need to separate all the different bits of yourself, but you use all of the strengths that you are accumulating from these various identities, these various
Yeah.
experiences, and bringing that all together and offering the service that can really help other people. And I think that's what you're doing. And, those that are attracted to that and those values and those experiences that you've had, you will be best placed to help them.
Yeah.
So keep showing up as your whole self, because I think people are definitely benefiting from you, your experiences, and you're just an amazing person. So
Oh, thank you. And you know what? I appreciate you saying that, because sometimes I'm like, am I doing this wrong? Because when you learn about entrepreneurship, some folks will tell you you have to have an ideal client persona in mind. And then it's hard for me to niche down because I'm like, but I love all kinds of people,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
So how can I turn this into like one ideal profile of a client when I know that there's so many different breadths of people and experiences that could be interested in the work that I'm doing. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's because of who I am and how I provide my services. But it doesn't have to be this person has to be exactly like me, or this person has to be a specific type of profile.
Yeah.
Right. So I often feel like, am I doing this right? Because I'm leaning into what feels good. And this definitely feels good to me. It's just leaning into who I am, what I stand for, and whoever I attract is whoever I attract.
And I think that's the way to do it. I really think nobody benefits from you showing up as anything other than yourself. So you showing up as your whole self is your best self, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So keep doing what you're doing, because I think you're doing amazing work. So in terms of aspiring BIPOC scholars and mothers who may be considering doing a PhD, what advice would you give them based on the experiences that you've had and the insights that you have obviously picked up along the way?
There are two main things that come to mind with this question. The first is that you want to make sure that it's actually necessary for you to pursue a PhD, and that this is the right time for you, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you're encouraged to go things according to a certain trajectory and a certain timeline. but it just might not make sense for you and your circumstances. And for some people, it doesn't make sense at all to go to graduate school. So I'm not someone that I want to say everybody should go, because I know from plenty of people that I personally know where graduate school did not make sense for them, and it caused some delays in their life, and it, you know, created some for more obstacles for them than it created opportunities. That's not true for everyone. For some folks, it definitely makes sense. For some folks, it opens up a lot of opportunities and avenues, but really think long and hard about whether or not it makes sense to you. That might include talking to other people who have pursued that degree, talking to professionals in the industries you're interested in, and more importantly, too, talking to your family. So if you are a mama, I can't stress this enough. This is also very common for those of us that are part of collectivist communities. If you have whatever your support system is, sometimes you're a single mama, so your support system is talking to who are the folks who are supporting you?
Yeah.
Is it extended family? Is it siblings? Is it parents? Is it partner, spouse, kids? So having these conversations with your family, because whether it's a 2 to 3 year master's degree or a multi-year doctoral program, it is a big commitment. It is going to take time away from your family. And again, it's not something that we talk about enough about how it could potentially negatively impact your relationship. So if you come in with this idea in mind of, I'm going to be very clear and transparent and talk to my family about it, let them know the expectations, let them know, hey, I'm going to be away for some family gatherings, or I'm not going to be able to attend every single thing, or I'm going to need help with childcare, or I'm going to need this type of support.
Mm-hmm.
Then you come in with a built-in support system. Then you come in with clear expectations. Then you're not disrupting any relationships. So I definitely think it's important. One, do you need to go? If so, is this the right time for you, not the right time that everybody else is telling you to do it? And then two, if it is, talk to people, talk to your community, talk to the folks in these industries, talk to folks in these graduate programs, talk to your family, make sure that they're on board too, because it's a lot more challenging. I think the reason why you and I have done this and done this successfully, because not everybody gets to finish a PhD, and sometimes folks are pushed out, and sometimes folks don't have the support system for it.
Yeah.
And we are two people that have very supportive, from what I gather, very supportive partners.
Yes.
And I definitely have to shout out my husband, because he supported me every step of the way. I've talked to you how at one point I forgot how many times I wanted to quit my PhD program. And then my husband reminds me, remember all those times you told me you wanted to quit and I told you to keep going? And I'm like, oh, I forgot.
Yeah, trust me. I've been there too. I've been there too. For sure.
So those are the two things for sure, that definitely at the very least do those two things.
Yeah, and I think I like the idea. I like what you said there about not just whether it's the right thing, but whether it's the right time. I think that's really key, really, really key, because we always feel this sense, especially as high achievers, this sense that we just got to keep going and keep going and keep achieving and keep pursuing. And actually, especially as mamas, especially with people with care and responsibilities, we're older, our parents are getting older as well. And then there's additional, family obligations and things.
Right.
And maybe now isn't the right time for everybody. And also, I wanted to speak to those who are in PhD programs, because I think there's a lot of guilt and shame around leaving, walking away from it. And I just kind of wanted to offer that encouragement that if you are in a position where that's something you're considering, to really seek some support, see if you can get some help to talk through it. And you might come to the decision that actually it's time to walk away. And that's okay.
Yeah.
As long as that is an informed, well-supported decision, then life is not going to end because you've decided to walk away from a PhD. But if you decide to stay on and complete this PhD, I think it's really important, as you rightfully said, to ensure that you tap into the community support, tap into the family support, tap into whatever village you have, or even if it's institutional support. I think I mentioned to you some time ago that I had coaching as a PhD student at the very end, and that was really helpful for me as a student. And so whether it's a coach, whether it's a community, whether it's a partner, whether it's your parents or your family members, if you can get any kind of support, tap into that and allow people to help and support you. Because I know sometimes, we think we're superwomen and we could just do everything and we don't need help. But sometimes you actually do. And there's nothing wrong with getting help.
You reminded me of something that sometimes I mention to folks in conversations about how so many of us, especially from communities of color, we are socialized to believe that the only acceptable way of investing in ourselves is through higher education.
Yeah.
And there are so many other ways to invest in ourselves. I am someone who, like you, I also sought out coaches and editors at the end of my PhD.
Yeah.
So I did hire someone to help edit my dissertation. I also hired someone to review my tenure track job materials when I thought I wanted to be on the tenure track job market. And then after, when I finished, I hired someone to help me with the career exploration process to make my pivot. And all of these services were really, really helpful. I had to save every single one of my pennies. I worked 3 jobs at one point, part-time jobs, to make ends meet. And yes, it was a huge investment and it was a big deal for me because it was my first time ever investing in myself in that way.
Yeah.
But it definitely paid off. I learned, not only did it help me with the next steps, but I also learned skills that I implement to this day about being a professional and how to work with others.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to this and you've never worked with a coach before, you've never worked with a consultant before, you've never hired someone to help you, this is the time to consider that. Sometimes that might also mean therapy. I'm a big proponent of mental health support. So I definitely tapped into that a lot in graduate school as well. So seek out the resources, get the help that you need. If it's possible, if it's financially feasible, hire help as well. There's no shame in that. So many of us, like you said, we have that superwoman cape, try to do it all, and having a little help can make a big difference.
So true. And one of the things as well that I reflected on recently was the idea of protecting the asset. And I got this from Greg McKeown's book, Essentialism. And one of the things that I have recognized, even on this journey myself, is that, like you said, we're socialized as people of color to invest in higher education because we think that that's going to bring us success. But actually, we forget that along that path, along that journey of higher education, we are the assets in this. Mm-hmm. We are the ones that are, hopefully can get to the end and be the beneficiaries of the journey. We're the ones who, we're the ones on these journeys of becoming, right? Mm-hmm. We are the ones, we are the asset. So it makes sense, if you think about it like that, to invest in the asset, to invest in getting the help that the asset needs, to invest in becoming the person the asset needs to become in order to achieve what the asset wants to achieve. It makes sense to invest in us. Yeah. And, if there's any doubt, and I know it's not always financially feasible for everybody, but there may be free options available. And if you can tap into those, just really remember to protect the asset in all of this. Get help. Like you said, there's no shame, and we really should. And that help could even be just community support and just connection with other people. Yeah. So life-changing, honestly. I don't know if I had to do my PhD all over again as a mama, I think one of the first things I would do is get that support. I think I left it really late and struggled quite a lot with isolation and feeling like people didn't really connect and understand my journey and, the limitations of it. And one of the first things I would have done is just connect with other mothers who are on this journey, get some help, whether that be coaching or something. But, I guess one of the good things is that I've been through it now, and I'm here to inspire and to support others who are in that position just a few steps behind. And so, yeah, I agree. I 100% agree with, really getting that help and not being ashamed of it. So, yeah, I think we've kind of gone through most of the questions, but I know that a lot of the listeners would want to know more about your work, your services, your book as well. I forgot to mention that you have a book. So could you share a little bit more about where people can find you online? Where can they buy your book if they're interested? How and where can they work with you?
Right. Yes, I'm happy to do that. I'll start with the book. So the book that I had that came out in April of 2024 is called Is Grad School for Me? Demystifying the Application Process for First-Gen BIPOC Students. And it walks you through the process of asking yourself that question and making the decision to apply to graduate school. And if the answer is yes, you want to apply, it also walks you through every stage of the process of walking through the application materials to navigating the interview process, funding, etc. So everything that you need to know about navigating the grad school admissions process as a first-gen BIPOC student and also as a low-income and non-traditional student that you can find there. And if you're interested in learning more, if you'd like to order a copy or if you'd like to have your library order a copy, you can find it at isgradschoolforme.com. And then if you want to learn more about me and my work, or if you want to follow me on socials, I am available on Instagram. The handle is Grad School Femtoring. So it's like mentoring, but with an FEM. And also on LinkedIn, you can find me with my name, Yvette Martinez Vu. And then if for all things related to my work, go to gradschoolfemtoring.com.
Love it, love it, love it. Well, I am so happy to have had you finally on the show. I know that your story, your experiences, your insights will resonate so strongly with the audience that tends to tune into this podcast. And so, yeah, I cannot wait to connect with you outside of this again soon. But thank you so much for being here, Yvette. I really appreciate it. And I've loved having you on the show. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Mrs. Mummy PhD podcast. I hope you've enjoyed the episode, and if you did and you want in on this movement, please head over to mrsmummyphd.com or scholarlymamas.com. If you want to do your PhD well without sacrificing yourself or those you love dearest, then you need your hands on my free training called the PhD with Purpose Webinar. When you join us inside Scholarly Mamas Explore, you'll get access to this free training and so much more. Remember, Mama, these are our journeys of becoming.